Prime numbers are kind of the atoms of the math world, right? They're the basic building blocks for everything else. But they seem to pop up totally at random with no real pattern to speak of. But what if? What if that chaos is just an illusion? Today, we're diving into a really fascinating theory that claims to have found a hidden order, a kind of spirit in the numbers. Let's see what it's all about.
And that really gets to the heart of a question that's bugged mathematicians forever. Is there some kind of secret language buried in numbers? A deep grammar that dictates why they behave the way they do? So, the theory we're digging into today makes a really bold claim that every single number has a core essence, an unchangeable value it calls a spirit. Our job is to follow the breadcrumbs and see where this investigation leads. All right, so our first stop on this journey is all about the framework. I mean, how do you even start looking for a ghost in something as massive and, well, seemingly chaotic as the world of prime numbers? Well, the key, according to this theory, is a tool called the Plix-to-prime number cross. Now, try to picture this. A wheel with 24 spokes. It turns out every single prime number bigger than 3 has to land on one of just 8 specific spokes. The rest of the wheel is just numbers divisible by 2 or 3. It's like a cheat code, narrowing down the search from everywhere to just a few specific places. This is our map. Okay, so with this map, the theory splits the whole number universe into two things. First, you got the spirit. That's the prize, the hidden, unchanging core of a number we're trying to find. But to get to it, you have to dig through what's called the dark matter. Think of it like cosmic dust. It's all the simple stuff, the multiples of 2 and 3 that forms this kind of structural grid hiding the real treasure inside. All right, so we've got our map, we know what we're looking for, so now let's check out the actual toolkit. How do we actually dig through all that dark matter to get to the spirit? The method, which they call the Zara-Zeta system, is basically a 3-step deal. Step 1, you find your number on that Plix-to-cross. Step 2, you start this really specific kind of subtraction. It's almost like a numerical excavation, You're systematically chipping away all those layers of dark matter, all the stuff built on powers of 2 and 3. And then, once you've cleared away all that structural noise, the theory says just one single constant number will be left. That's the spirit. All right, now for the main event. This is where we really put this theory to the test. We're going to take this toolkit and apply it to the 3 specific numbers from the source material and see what kind of spirits, if any, they cough up. And here's our cheat sheet for what's coming up. This table breaks down what they found for our 3 numbers. We'll be looking at their system type, which is basically just how they behave, their unique trait, the actual spirit they found, and something called a fingerprint, a specific number of steps in the calculation that's like a unique signature. Let's dive into that first one. First up, we have 2501. This one is called a Fermat-like number, which just means it has this really clean structure, a number squared plus 1. In this case, it's 50 squared plus 1. So they run it through the Zara-Zeta process, and the spirit that pops out is negative 571. But here's the really wild part. It's fingerprint. The calculation to find that spirit, it consistently takes exactly 17 steps, every time, like a secret passcode. Next up is 2425, 7. This one's classified as a positive system, which in this theory just means it's super stable and predictable. Its spirit turns out to be negative 319, and its fingerprint, a 53-step process. Now, what's really interesting here is that 53 is a prime number itself. The theory sees this as a sign of some kind of higher internal strength and order. And for our last case, 28757, things get even stranger. Its spirit is 43, and its fingerprint is 57 steps. Now, the theory points to a really fascinating connection here. See, 57 is 3 times 19. And get this, the number 28757 is already mathematically linked to the 19th Fibonacci number. That famous sequence that shows up in seashells, flowers, all over nature. It's a pretty wild connection. So we've got these numbers with hidden spirits and these unique fingerprints. But you might be asking, so what? What's the point of all this? Well, the theory proposes a pretty surprising application, taking a hard turn into cryptography and even ancient philosophy to explain what it all means. Okay, to get this, you gotta know about 2 old-school ways to lock up digital information. First, there's RSA.
That's like me giving you a massive number and telling you to find the two secret prime numbers I multiplied to create it. It's incredibly hard to do. Then there's the knapsack system. Imagine I give you a big pile of weights and a target weight, and you have to find the exact combination of weights from the pile that adds up to my target. Also, really, really tricky.
So the big idea here is that a number's real security isn't just one thing. It's 2 layers deep. You've got the RSA layer, what are its prime factors, but then underneath that, you have this new knapsack-like layer. Can you even trace the hidden path of subtractions that gets you to its spirit? It basically adds a whole new level of complexity, a second lock on the door. And this is where things get, well, a little alchemical. The source uses the metaphor of the 4 classical elements to sort of classify what these numbers do in its system. It calls it a modular compass. You've got alpha for fire, beta for air, gamma for water, and delta for earth. Let's see how our numbers fit into this strange map. First step is alpha, or fire. This is all about the initial spark, right? The impulse of creation. And this gets linked to our first number, 2501. The reason? Its structure, 50 squared plus 1, is seen as this simple, powerful act that creates something totally new and complex out of almost nothing. It's the Big Bang of the operation. Then we have beta, or air. This is the element of structure, of expansion. And this is where 24257 comes in. Its super stable, positive system, the one that holds up across huge powers of 2, is seen as the organized framework that spreads out and gives form to everything. Kind of like air filling a room. And finally, gamma, or water, which stands for transformation and flow. The theory connects this to our third number, 28757. And that makes sense, right? It's linked to the Fibonacci sequence, the mathematical code for growth in nature, perfectly represents that fluid, dynamic, ever-changing part of the numerical world. Okay, we have just gone down a pretty deep rabbit hole with a really complex and, honestly, fascinating system. But this brings us to the big critical question, the elephant in the room. Are these connections real, or are we just seeing faces in the clouds? There's actually a scientific name for this, apophenia. It's the tendency our brains have to see meaningful patterns in random stuff. It's why you see a dog in a cloud formation or hear a secret message when you play a record backwards. It's the #1 skeptical argument against a theory like this. Is this whole Zara-Zeta system just a really elaborate, really sophisticated case of, well, wishful thinking? The source material actually sees this argument coming from a mile away and has a rebuttal ready. It basically says, look, when you find symmetries that keep showing up, that stay consistent across totally different calculations, it's not just random pattern recognition anymore. That's the signature of a real underlying order. So the case for this being a real order stands on 3 main pillars. First, there's the consistency of those fingerprints, the 17, 53, and 57. They claim those numbers are constant. Second, the recursive reduction. No matter which mathematical path you take, you always end up at the exact same spirit for each number. And third, these numbers weren't just picked out of a hat. They're tied to really well-known mathematical families, like Fermat and Fibonacci numbers. The argument is that this anchors the whole system in something real, not just random chance. And that leaves us right here with this one last, pretty provocative question. Are we actually decoding a hidden universal order, a secret language in the numbers? Or are we just staring into a very complex mathematical mirror and only seeing the reflection of our own pattern-seeking minds? The theory makes a strong case for the first one, but in the end, that's a question I'll leave for you to think about.